Hey everybody, my next guest is a creative juggernaut. He's a writer, actor, producer, comedian, and the creator of the Super Mega Trivia Slam, which could be seen on both Strong Island TV and Drake Media Studios. Here he is, the one and only Steve Strangio.
Hey, you said it right. Look at you. I mean, I've always heard, like, there's like 17 pronunciations of my name, and you said the Italian version was Strangio, which is very good. And when you say it, it feels good too. Strangio.
Strangio.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels better saying it too. Like from my end, when I say it, I feel like Strangio.
You have to say it with your entire body. Strangio.
The last time I spoke to you, like I was saying, was in the late 90s, man. The Double D radio show. You came on there, WUSB, back in the day. It was you were on the same day as Joey Cola. I don't know if you remember that whole experience.
I remember hanging with Joey. Yeah, we I just, during those days I kept running into Joey everywhere I was. I remember like a long train ride with Joey. I remember like every time I saw Joey's this first time over at Eastside Comedy, guy got a standing ovation. The man's just a force of nature and like one of the nicest human beings on the planet. So I'm so happy, that he is where he is right now. And yeah, man, I remember that was a great show. I mean, the 90s, some people forget the 90s. I was there for the entire thing. I remember them. That's when I first started doing stand-up comedy in the late 80s. I was 17 years old. I started at Nassau Community College. It was my first time up on stage.
Nice.
And it was in front of like every Long Island comedian who was popular at the time. And I had convinced Nassau Community College that I was a working professional comedian. I had to actually audition for them in like the college union. And I was really big into Robin Williams back then. So I was like kind of just moving around like crazy, doing as much improvisation as possible. And I had no set thing. And they were like, yeah, man, how do you say we're going to have you open up in front of 300 people for all of top comedians in the world? I'm like, okay. So
that's awesome, man.
Did it. That's the whole thing. When you're 17, you're fearless, man. You have no idea that you can bomb. And you went out there, it killed. And wow, it was amazing.
So 17 years old in the 80s in comedy on Long Island. So who'd you have there? Was Bob Nelson? Who was on that? Who were the top dogs?
Myers, Richie Minervini, John Mulrooney, Jeff Zabrowski. And then like as I was hanging out over at Eastside Comedy, it was like Adam Ferrara and Kevin James and and Gary Valentine and Rock Rubin and all those guys, and
yeah,
they were, and I was hanging out with all my guys like Al Isaacs and Paul Bond and Craig Mitchell, great, and all these guys who were just like part of my group, were really fun.
It was such a great time for comedy, man. Back in those days too, I was a comedy fan and I was like 15, 16 years old, sneaking in fake ID, because back then you could fake the ID with a pencil.
Oh yeah, you got a guy. Everybody had a guy.
Yeah, exactly. But I would go to Chuckles and I would go to East Side and I would see all of these guys. So to me, that's kind of like the golden age for me personally of Long Island stand-up comedy of all those guys you just mentioned. I mean,
what's great is like, I dove back into the open mic scene for a while, and they do open mic here at Strong Island TV at Paradise Studios where I'm doing this. And a lot of the open mics have changed a lot. They're more like group therapy now, because it's always like the same comedians doing sometimes the same stuff over and over again. That was a lot like that when you went into New York City. But here on Long Island back in the late 80s, early 90s, every time you went to an open mic, there was an audience, because it was a big comedy boom. I think the scene right now is in Austin, Texas, believe it or not, because I've been following a lot of like podcasts like Kill Tony does like a live
the mothership. Mothership.
Mothership. Yeah. Really, I would love to get a chance to go do a show, Super Mega Trivia Slam, which I'm sure we'll talk about later.
Oh, yeah.
I would love to get a chance to do the show there. It's just the scene changes wherever it goes. But back then it was the boom. And in a way, it was kind of like karaoke in a way, because you would have sometimes 15, 16, maybe 20 comedians in one night. And they had between 3 and 5 minutes. And you could tell, like much like in karaoke, within the first 3 seconds if that was going to be a good time.
Right.
And every comedian, we'd go roll our eyes, but then like we'd go hang out with them. I was the guy who would take them aside and go, all right, here's what you did wrong. Okay, if you want, I'm more than happy to help you out. Because honestly, when that first gig I did at Nassau Community College, it killed. But then I went to East Side Comedy and I bombed horribly. And then I bombed horribly for like 6 months straight. Okay. But the thing was, I didn't care that I was bombing. You know, I kept going. Going up there and learning and hanging out with the comedians. And it was the great thing about Long Island comedy, since we're like our own little state here, a little community, everybody looks out for each other.
Yeah, yeah.
There's the occasional goofball, but whatever, you know.
Right.
Everybody hung out and everybody helped. Here's what you did. We'll try to set up differently and yada, yada. So it really kind of helped. You know, it made me a better person. I'm a better improvisational performer. I did a lot of improvisation with Joan St. Ange, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah, Joan. Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Long Island had a contest. It was last year's slogan. Long Island, from sound to sea, the place to be. It blows, doesn't it? All due respect, mine is better. This is going to win. Long Island, take a pee on the LIE.
I think that you know the scene has ebbs and flows in it, and I feel like the scene is kind of the Long Island scene. It feels like it's getting some kind of a resurgence now. I do feel like there's a crop of comics that are coming up now,
and they're really good.
Yeah,
the open micers that I've seen are excellent. You know, they're very good. They just need an audience. You know?
They need an audience, but like to your point too, I think what separates about bombing and stuff like that and continuing to go through, even though you're bombing continuously for, you know, whether it's 6 weeks, 6 months, however long it is.
Yeah.
The drive to continue on to get better at the craft is, I think, what separates the men from the boys, so to speak, is the comics that will ultimately succeed and the other comics that will never know because they drop out because failure is scary. And when you're on that stage and if you bomb, you're not getting the laughs, or if your peers aren't digging what you're doing, it could derail some people. So I think it says a lot about you and your mettle that you persevered through those early days, and you know, and throughout your entire career, you're still rocking it. You're still coming up with new innovative ideas. You're still on stages. You're still doing it. What's the secret or the advice to that?
Yeah, I mean, don't be as delusional. You know, a lot of comedians, they'll come off stage after bombing and go, "It was the crowd. Crowd was stupid." No, it's just that you sucked. Okay. Just own up to the fact that you sucked. You know, we didn't have access to video back then. It was like maybe a digital recorder, even a tape recorder, and you couldn't do it. And you couldn't see yourself. Be open to criticism, but not to the point where you feel like you're compromising yourself too much. Listen to people. Listen to the crowd. You know, stop thinking that you're the most amazing thing in the history of the universe. It's good to have self-confidence, but ego is going to ruin you. Okay, so just keep persevering, keep learning, keep an open mind, watch what you're doing. And yeah, you are going to suck for a while. You know, maybe you might, much like Joey Colley, go up there and you're instantly amazing and, you know, good for him. The man
right. Yeah.
But it all depends on how you get there and how you learn. And it's, you know, something, it is an art form. There's going to be people in your world who are going to be telling you, you got to quit. This is stupid. What are you doing? You're wasting your time. But as anybody in the arts knows, it's not what you do, it's who you are. Okay, you can't stop doing this because it's who you are. You know, and it's usually the people who are closest to you who are telling you, you stop this, go get a real job. Well, screw you. This is a real job. You know,
exactly.
And now, you know, there's more access. Content is crazy, you know, and everybody's out there doing their thing. So that's what I'm saying. Just keep your mind open and be honest with yourself. If there's way too many delusional people out there who think they're amazing. And,
it's true.
Yes, pardon repeatedly, but not figuratively. But not actually figuratively, not seriously.
Yeah, they were calling that delusion the sickness. That's the new word here at the local scene, like Fat J and those comics. They call it the sickness. If someone's delusional, or if they think like, "Hey, man, I've been doing this for 3 weeks. When's my Netflix special?"
Yeah, well, that's the whole social media thing, which I promised myself. I was looking forward to telling this story too, because I promised myself I would never become this guy. Now, I remember when I was younger, I was doing actually when I went to Hofstra. So I went to Nassau Community College 2 years, and I went to Hofstra, and I waited until Hofstra opened up their brand new television facility, and I got to do a stand-up comedy show there called Jesters. Okay. And it was for their campus television. So the producer I was working with said, well, I got this guy, a friend of a friend, is my father's friend. He's a comedian. He wants to come down and help us out. I'm like, all right, great. So I invited him to a comedy club. This guy shows up, and you could just picture in your mind, he had his Friars Club jacket on, not that there's anything wrong with the Friars Club, but
right.
He comes in, he's like sauntering, you can hear the music like da, 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 pew. That type of guy.
Right, yeah.
He walks in, he saunters over, he goes, yeah, I'm just checking the place out, see what you comedians are doing these days, and just like walks right in. And then the person looks at me, I'm like, all right, here's his admission fee. So he sat down, and all he was doing was he saw all the new comedians, but like the comedians that night were like telling like really, really just horridly dirty jokes, and this was really, really bad. And some guy was like mimicking like puking or something for some reason. This guy just got up without saying a word and just walked out. And that was it.
Jeez. Yeah.
What happened? Because the thing was, I promised myself I would never get to be that point where when I hit a certain age, I wouldn't look down on the previous generation because they're doing their thing.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
And it appeals to that specific audience. And a lot of comedians, unless they transcend, like Jerry Seinfeld or whomever, a lot of comedians will have their specific audience where it works, And just because I don't find something funny doesn't mean it's not funny.
That's the thing with comedy is there's so many different genres within comedy, but we all get lumped together as this is stand-up comedy. But
right.
There's different genres within it. So like to your point, some people like dirty jokes, some people like clean Seinfeld, some people like urban, some people like this, that. It's all depends on on the individual.
And even though I haven't done stand-up comedy in a really long, so I had to stop because I started when I was 17. I stopped in my mid 30s. I basically kind of felt I did everything I needed to do and said everything I needed to say, and I did not want to become that guy who's constantly on the road just doing the same jokes over and over again. And as an artist, you got to grow. You got to try other things. So I'm part of that fraternity for life. It's just that it's time to move on to do other things. That's all.
So as you can see, I have a bit of an attitude because I'm of I'm of Italian heritage. Yes, yeah. Actually, I feel more like an American, but I'm very proud of my Italian heritage. Because Italians are so, they're very passionate people, very creative people, very poetic people. Yeah. I doubt you're going to go to a poetry competition and see some guy like, hey, Don, I'd like to read to you a poem from my new book entitled You Sat on My Monte Carlo, You Fat Bastard.
I think that's awesome that you kind of evolved throughout your career. And I remember when you were even on the Double D radio show back in the day, you were working on a board game. So, and I remember you trying to really get that board game off and running. Whatever happened with the board game and like...
Well, it was called Capture Zone. And I remember actually being on, I think it was either MSNBC or CNBC, FAO Schwartz. That's what it's called. It's not called FAO Schwartz, which I always thought it was. But they get mad at you. It's FAO Schwartz.
The Schwartz. Schwartz. Yes. The Schwartz.
Schwartz. Okay, I didn't know that.
They had
either.
like an open call to do stuff, and I actually went there and made the pitch. Somewhere in the files of TV is me making that pitch. I have yet to see it. Made the pitch, and then it just didn't go anywhere. The hardest part about inventing new things, and you know me, I'm constantly inventing new things, and I still have it. I still have like the trademark. I still have the prototype for the game. The hardest part is getting it out there. The easiest thing is actually inventing it. So I have this game that's like similar to checkers and chess, but it has like, you roll a dice and you can move in the direction of the arrows and all this other cool stuff. And people love it. And I would take it around. It's just that you need the money to manufacture the thing. You need the money to get it out there, and then there's like, all the like legal things you got to do. And that's always the biggest hurdle.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, money.
I think that's how the ultimate game of life is rigged, is that, okay, all of us could come up with these ideas. I mean, not all of us, but you know what I'm saying? People come up with ideas, inventors, and then what holds them ultimately back is all the red tape, the money, the financing, the lawyer fees, all that kind of stuff. Have you ever tried to get any of these inventions or games to like Shark Tank or something along those lines? And what's that road like?
Yeah, people have mentioned, Steve, you got to go on Shark Tank. Steve, you got to go on Shark Tank. Yeah, I'd love to go on Shark Tank. But the thing is, going back to the whole thing about being honest with yourself, if they start coming at me with numbers and business acumen, I do have a certain amount. It's just that I need somebody by my side to answer those questions for me. Sometimes I have it, sometimes I don't. I mean, now I kind of do, because I'm represented by Downstage Entertainment. A guy named Harlan Halper is my manager. So I have somebody, in my corner who can answer questions, or you can find somebody to answer those questions with me. That's the biggest thing. I've seen people go on Shark Tank and not be prepared for those guys.
Right? Yeah.
Say, well, Steve, just go on. Even if they turn you down, you can still, sell things. I'm like, sure, I'd love to, but I need to know that it's an acceptable, damage if I do go in. I'd much rather go in with somebody who can answer every question and negotiate. Because not only have I done the board games, but I've done the game show, which we could talk about, and all these sports that I've invented. But
yeah, well, definitely want to talk about all that stuff. But I think you're similar to me in a sense, and tell me if I'm wrong, is that you're more of a creative mind than a business mind, and you need and you need that. Like I'm the same way. I'm to my fault, I'm not good at business. It holds me back, I feel, from really.
I don't think it's like you're not good. It's just that it's not your acumen,
Right?
A certain part of my life where I've kind of understood that, hey, listen, I know what I'm good at, and a lot of people I know what I'm good at, and I want to stay in my lane. I'll learn, okay, but I don't want to go into a situation where I convince somebody that I have that certain type of business acumen to answer their questions. I'm loyal and honest to a fault. So there's no way in hell that I'm going to put myself in a situation where they start asking me questions about percentages and negotiations. I'll be like, I got this game.
Right? Exactly. To me, it's like there's a yin and yang, and for me, if I'm the yin, I need a yang.
We need a yang,
right?
Where's the yang?
Where's the yang?
I need my yang.
I think if we find the right yang, dude, we're off and running.
The secret of life: find your yang. That's a T-shirt. Bobby, make that T-shirt.
Yeah, we need Bobby to make a where's your get a yang T-shirt, or where's your yang?
Where's my yang? I see Strangio.
But because you mentioned the sports, and I know you created Zone Ball, and that seemed to be really taking off.
It is,
yeah. So tell me, let's talk Zone Ball, man. You created a sport, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, a lot of people are like, you created a sport, and I created this back in like the mid 2000s, but it had its roots in like the early 1990s. So I'm the only child of an all-star soccer player. Tony Strangio, rest in peace. The man was more creative than me, in a sense. He made a lot of inventions too. It's probably where I got it from. And my mother is not a big fan of sports, but she loves entertainment. And that made me, because I'm the only child. So I would go hang out with my father, and he'd go play soccer, and he loved soccer, was his passion. He's the first to arrive, last to leave, and he would hang out after, and he would talk to the guys about the strategy of the game and how to do it. And I'd sit there and learn from him and learn about strategy and so on and so forth. Same time, I'd hang out with my mom, and we'd watch stage plays or movies, whatever. And there's a certain structure in there. So I thought to myself, okay, I thought sports in its essence is a structured improvisation. Okay, right. You're telling a story through physicality, and there's a structure within it. So it's full improvisation as well. You're learning how to play this. So I figured, why don't we just take all those things together? I became obsessed with creating my own sport. And I learned, I would sleep at night, and the way my brain works, it's like now I have to listen to podcasts to keep my brain off. But I would go through the scenario. What would work? What's checks and balances? How would the structure work? And the first sport I ever invented was called roller clash, which was a inline skating. You can't call it rollerblading. It's an inline skating sport. And I thought to myself, I don't think there's a sport with a goal in the center. So when I put a barrel in the center, my father, who was a construction worker, had this like orange barrel. And I think, can I use that? He's like, what do you want? I'm inventing a sport. Sure, go ahead. So he gave me this barrel. Now the thing was, I knew how to roller skate. I didn't know how to inline skate. So without me even knowing how to inline skate, I approached the Long Island Road and Track Skating Association back in the 90s. I said, I got this sport. We should play. And they're like, okay. I'm like, all right. So I showed up and we started playing this sport. But then I literally submitted Roller Clash to ESPN. The guy who invented the X Games, Ron Semiow, sent me a letter of intent saying, get this thing up and running, and we'll broadcast it on a worldwide basis.
Wow.
And that's where the whole thing about who has the money, how can I build the league, how do I run the league, and I it just didn't work out for some stupid reason. Okay, flash forward, I took some time off. I said, well, what if we just took the skates off? And people were saying they wanted to take shots on goal, so how can we do that? So I was walking around and I saw like this sandwich board that looked like this. I thought, well, people can take shots on goal. What if I put a hole on either side? And then they can't enter the zone using a ball. Boom, zone ball. And after playing it so many times in my head, the best it's kind of like sculpting in a way. The sport reveals the rules to you as you play it.
Right, you start to
Got a bunch of my friends
find flaws and things.
Yeah,
Oh, we
you
need to
find
fix
that
that.
doesn't
Right,
work.
right.
That works. But originally, you would throw the ball and catch it and then stay there. But people wanted to move, so that's why I added the dribbling element. But I didn't want it to be totally like basketball, so they can stop and start if they want. They can double dribble, whatever it is. So it's all gender, non-contact. And I came up with the rules, and we started playing it on a regular basis. I started doing a lot of really cool like demo games wherever, One day I was living in New Jersey at the time, and I saw something on the big screen. It was called the Moxie Games. I'm like, this is awesome. What is this? It was on ESPN 8, The Ocho.
ESPN 8, The Ocho, bringing you the finest in seldom seen sports from around the globe since 1999. If it's almost a sport, we've got it here.
The Ocho
becomes ESPN 8. One of my life goals was to be on ESPN 8, The Ocho. And I got to be on ESPN 8, The Ocho. It was astounding. I called the guy up from the Moxie Games, and I'm like, listen, I got this. Same thing I did with you gotta just take that chance. Only by attempting the absurd can you achieve the impossible.
Love that.
So I call. He goes, well, if you can make it to Vegas, we'll figure it out. So I couldn't take the zone ball goal with me on the damn plane. That's what I got checked in customs. So I shipped it out. Right. I took a plane to Vegas. I showed up, and we worked together to find this guy named Jason all the players. And we found the players right there and then. And we played 2 games, and it got to be on ESPN 8, The Ocho.
You've seen it on ESPN, now you can own it. This is Zone Ball, a brand new non-contact team sport that improves coordination. You'll have so much fun it won't even feel like exercise. Zone Ball is a challenging game with a low footprint that's ready to play in minutes. Be the one to bring Zone Ball to your school, community center, backyard, or play street. Keep your kids busy for hours with this fun, high-energy activity. Zone in on one of the hottest new sports today at zoneballsport.com.
Something
awesome.
Great. This is where it happens. This is where it explodes. This is where it's going to start. And then the pandemic happened.
That pandemic, man, the timing of that pandemic it seemed to have messed up so much for so many, including zone ball. But now,
just to interrupt, but it actually just gave me a pause, because once that happened, now it's like back. But now I'm like, I'm talking to like several different leagues. We did a lot of demo games for local leagues here. There's a few places on YouTube, these YouTube sports companies that want to start doing the game. I literally have a deal on the table to do multi-episode arc for Zone Ball. It's like a 14-episode show. Once again, we need investors. But the thing is, we have production, we have the distribution, we have everything in place. It just comes down to the funding.
wow, so that would be super cool too, man. Yeah, so with something like that, what would it be like? All like not just the sport itself, but also behind the scenes, the making of the team, or like a docu-series.
We actually, if you go to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/zoneballsport, you can actually see a 3-minute demo of the reality show that we could shoot. But I've invented so many sports. I literally have 3 sports on the market right now, 30 sports in development, 30, and I have specialty stock car races that I invented during the pandemic. I have trampoline sports that I've invented during the pandemic. I have all this stuff. I'm in a position where if the right person comes along with funding, I can introduce a new sport, not only every year, but every 6 months. And imagine a reality show where you're following me along and like watching how I do it, watching how a sport's created.
I think that's awesome.
I
think too, now in the wake of, and tell me what you think about like these kind of seemingly new games that are rising in popularity through the years. One being like pickleball,
yeah,
and the other one being I guess I would actually did a little research. Jebediah McGillicuddy is the name of the guy who invented cornhole.
Oh, good.
So
I think that sounds like something that Jebediah McGillicuddy would invent.
when you see sports like pickleball and cornhole start to get popular like this into the mainstream, does that add fuel to you, or do you get mad that they made it to this level, or like what's your feelings on other kind of fringe sports?
I made a conscious decision not to get mad, because getting mad doesn't solve anything. It just makes me look, petty. You know?
Yeah.
I don't want. I celebrate them, even if it's pickleball or cornhole. A sport called pickleball exists. If a sport called pickleball exists, then there's room for other sports.
Exactly. Yeah.
People are playing Quidditch now. They have a different name for it, but they are running around with brooms between their legs. I celebrate that. I think that's awesome. Because you know why? When I was inventing sports back in the early 1990s, nobody knew what the hell to do with me. The very fact that these sports are happening right now validates my entire journey up until this point.
I think that these ultimately definitely help you, help Zone Ball, help all the other sports you're making. I think when because even other mainstream people, and like in this day and age, when you see, oh, this made it, so then it kind of lets the guard down for people to accept new sports, because back in the day it was you're competing with baseball, football, tennis. Yeah, now it's like, hey, I think people's minds are opening up.
Still with the bag left. Ruben slides it in, and this could be it.
My goal is to eventually create something I'm going to call Sports Fest, where every sport that I've invented, like my version of the X Games, only with team sports. Okay?
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Every sport that I've invented will be in this, festival. And I think it can happen. Breakthrough, which I think Zone Ball, and I'm like 75% of the way there. Okay. People are gonna like I write screenplays too and stage plays, and they're always like, what else do you got? What else do you got? I literally have 30 years worth of experience.
Yeah.
Like, here, just take all of these.
With your mind going like a mile a minute, and you're creating all these things, everything from board games to sports to game shows, as trivia. When do you figure out which one? Yes, the super mega trivia slam. When do you figure out which one you want to lean on? Which one is the one you're going to push?
I know it sounds kind of esoteric to say, but I kind of just go where the muse takes me. I go where, you can tell if you're juggling several things. Like right now, Super Mega Trivia Slam and Zone Ball are at the forefront. But I just made up cable stuff for Super Mega Trivia Slam, and the majority of it was done here. I filmed them here, and I also filmed at Kevin Smith's podcast theater, a few doors down from when they filmed Clerks.
Oh, cool.
Which is awesome. And then I filmed at the Triad Theater in New York City. So I filmed all of these things, and I had this, and that was during the pandemic. It was me to my way to work through it, and just, I was dealing with a divorce at the time, so I threw myself into my work, and just, and I tried to be positive, look forward, and then Zone Ball too, but then you hit a certain plateau where it's like, okay, now it's on autopilot. I've done everything I can do. What else do I have? My latest thing is that I've been blasting out my stage plays. I have Sex Ain't Love, Happy Saturdays, and Random Acts of Horror, which I call Tales from the Crypt, the musical. That I've been sending out Sex Ain't Love, which is a contemporary romantic comedy, to as many, edging towards the stage plays that I have. I still have this interactive movie screenplay that I wrote back in the early 90s with a company called Interfilm. I was the second person to ever write an interactive movie. I was taught by the guy. That's like a choose your path type of movie.
Yeah.
And when it came out in the 90s, the first one was called I'm Your Man by Bob Bujan and Interfilm. You actually went to a movie theater and you got to press a button, like you had three buttons, 3 colored buttons, and you had to press which way you wanted the movie to go. And every 2 minutes, they offered you that choice point.
Yeah.
There was like 100 different ways to watch the film. Now, I wrote the next one called Disco Zombie Bash. It's kind of like Beetlejuice meets Saturday Night Fever. So I have this, and unfortunately at the time, even though Robert Zemeckis was making interactive films and a few other people were making interactive films, Adam West was in an interactive film called Ride for Your Life, which I was issued into another project, and my contract was up. So I literally have this interactive movie screenplay.
That's cool.
On time to make it, So that's how my brain works. It's like I'm constantly juggling thoughts in this circus that I call a head, and I just go where I go. Well, that's interesting. Let's do that.
I love that. I think it's inspiring, for people to see, a guy like you with all these different creativity just coming out of all directions. It's pretty awesome.
Thank you. You have to live, man. We're here. Apparently, I might be here for a reason because my parents were told they couldn't have kids, and here I am. To this day, I'm a very good swimmer.
There you go. There you go, man. You're here for a reason, man, and you're bringing all these inventions and sports and all these ideas and plays to life. And now with the Super Mega Trivia Slam, you've been doing this for a while, and mainly out of the Strong Island studios. Tell me a little bit about this trivia show and how it got to where it is today.
So I worked a lot as a trivia show host. After doing stand-up comedy, I kind of craved the audience again. And since I have a strong improvisational background, but I do like to just read, the questions. When I was living in New Jersey, actually, starts back at, believe it or not, some people may not know, I used to work for the WWE. Believe it or not.
Oh, cool.
From 1999 to 2001, it was then they were transitioning from the WWF to WWE.
Right.
It's the slogan was "Get the F out." Yeah. So that was their slogan. Uncle Vince came up with that. I found out that they were hiring at WWF New York, which is now the Hard Rock. So I thought, I got to go. I just came off of filming something called Your Internet Show, which was a TV show about the internet. That's how early 1990s over for Donna Drake and WLNY. And I was like, they were like, well, we want to, they had open call for people. And I said, well, I work in television. I've done stand-up comedy. I want to host things. And they're like, the only thing we have available right now is waiter. I was like, all right, I worked at Fridays. I don't care. Right. I want my foot in the door.
Yeah. So
I got my foot in the door, and I went there. I think I was like, not a lot of people there knew a lot about wrestling. And I was in a small group, believe it or not, who knew a lot about wrestling there. So, I got to actually become a waiter and help people out. But then I found out they had opportunities, and I literally got to be at Titan Towers holding a microphone doing an audition because I found out the SmackDown party was available and I can do the eyebrow. Yeah. So, all right. I auditioned, they gave me the gig and they said, go do something. I'm like, okay. So I got to create and produce the SmackDown party, and they wanted to do something before the show and during the show. So a superstar would show up. I'd bring out the superstar, whatever, say hello. And then I would do trivia. But the trivia was different because we couldn't have people write stuff down. So I had them shout out the answers. Okay. So they did that, and that's where the trivia was born. Then we do superstar interviews and create an immersive experience. So I created a fun immersive experience to get people involved. I remembered that. And then a few years later, after hosting so much trivia, when you go to a trivia show, they're like, you got to be quiet. Okay. You have to write answers down or answer them into your phone. Prizes really matter. I want to invent a show where the whole tagline was shout out the answers, keep your own damn score. Right. I don't got time to do math. Okay. So I created this and I took everything I've learned from hosting television and hosting live performances and doing stand-up comedy and improvisation, whereas people can shout out these answers. 3 rounds of multiple choice trivia with themes like, movie line or Nicolas Cage, or what the hell is that thing? Stuff like that.
Right. Yeah.
And then I'd ask the question for the first round, just 5 questions of people shouting out, group play. They can keep their score if they want to. It doesn't matter. And then in the second, and I give a fun fact. In the second round, I randomly start picking people to play, and it's one at a time. That one person can answer. I want them to stay in the audience. I don't bring them up. They stay in the audience so they feel comfortable. Everybody can shout out answers, but only they can give the correct answer. If they win, they get a small prize and then a ticket to put into a bag. And then we do the rapid fire round at the end. And then that one person has to get 4 out of 5 correct, and if they win the grand prize. So I wanted to
cool.
Something where you can just shout out answers and go nuts and be rowdy and have a good time. And that's what, Super Mega Trivia Slam's all about. And people just instantly took to it.
Welcome to Super Mega Trivia Slam. Hey, guess what? I'm your host, Steve Strangio.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the show.
With a bunch of awesome trivia questions with all different themes to make the game that much more fun.
It sounds like a blast, because there's other trivia nights, but this sounds like a blast. Like you said, you could, yell out the answers. Even when you choose the one person and they're in the hot seat, you could still yell out answers, and he could decide, or she could decide whether or not.
Are they giving the right answer, or are they giving the wrong
right,
answer?
Yeah.
It's almost like The Price is Right in the way people like shouting out higher, lower. So, I wanted to create a group experience so people can have some fun with it, because there were times when it felt like I was going to school. I felt like I was a teacher.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
All right, pens down. Let's find out if we got the answer correct.
Right. Yeah, it definitely. It feels like a lot of fun. It goes back to your interactive vibes of the movie, where you could, where people are. It's extremely interactive. As a host, are you jumping all around? Are you staying on stage?
It all depends on the situation. It all depends on what the stage is. I like to jump into the crowd. I like to stay up. Constantly in motion. I see a visual in my head about how I want the show to be filmed. Right now, it's just me up on the stage. But I have like 3 or 4 cameras, one camera isolated on me. So in case I jump into the crowd, they go with me. The biggest thing I love about, and also what I love about your show is that you have multiple camera angles, you cut to visuals, there's a reset in the mind of the person watching this, which I think is very important to the viewing experience.
Right. Yeah.
A lot of podcasters, know, and I've been, watching a lot of stuff what YMH Studios is doing out in Austin, Texas, with Tom Segura and Christina P. And Tony Hinchcliffe with Kill Tony, and how they use multiple cameras and stuff like that.
Right. Right.
It's how I feel streaming television should be, because it's uncensored, it's free flowing. There is a structure, so it's these things that I'm really into. Same thing with Kevin Smith, in Hollywood Babylon and the stuff that he does. There's an audience interaction, and then you can do the show either without a crowd or with a crowd. So just to answer your question there, I love it. I love the immediate feel of a crowd. I love to be like a hot crowd who's into it. And I learned something like a long time. Actually, I learned this from Jackie Martling, believe it or not. Warming up the crowd is just as important as doing the show, because the crowd has to be ready. So you got to warm them up. You got to play some music, throw some visuals at them, get them pumped, and then start off the show. So. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, I think warming them up, getting them all primed up and ready to rock, and this way you get the best out of them when it comes up. They're already loose, they're already ready to have some fun.
A lot of comedy clubs know that too, and Joey Cole is a master at that, of course.
Now, if what's the ultimate goals for this the Super Mega Trivia Slam?
Well, to get it out there on streaming as much as possible, I have 2 goals in mind. I want to play a stadium with it, okay. Because it's really a talk show disguised as a game show. I never call it a trivia show. I always call it a game show with trivia questions. So I can see. There's a precedent for it. Bruce Campbell has been doing it with a lot of his thing. He does, his game show. I saw they did over in Patchogue at the main theater there. They were doing a thing with The Office, where they did The Office trivia, and they brought someone down, David Koechner, to host it. So there is a precedent, to do stuff like that. I need to get my visibility up, and I think the 26 episodes out on streaming people will start seeing it and want to ask for more. So I want to take it around to a performance arts centers, get it out there, and then show it for the crowd. Even create a space where I can bring on special guests.
That would be fun.
Maybe do a wacky song or do an improvisational bit as part of the question.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Those 2 things together, and then to also continue. Either through YouTube or for streaming, I want to create a streaming show where there are multiple cameras, is a hype audience really into it, and build it. Sometimes getting crowds can be a challenge only because people got so used to staying in the house, during the pandemic.
Right, and getting people continuously to come.
Get them out. So I want to give them a fun, comfortable. So I'm not an insult comic, I don't mind insult comedy. It's just the way it is, but I'm just not like that.
Right.
Trivia freaks people out to begin with, because they don't want to seem stupid.
Right. That's a great point. Yeah.
So
that's what's good about everybody shouting out, because you could, if you're shy, you could hide in the crowd, but
Yeah. I mean, some people hate it when it's like, I was doing trivia where we didn't offer multiple choices, and people come up to me after the show like, I don't know what the hell that was. And I don't want them to feel stupid. I want them to have a good time. That's why I give them every opportunity to get the question right.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Because like you said, it's not really, it's more of an experience than it is actual.
Yeah. Don't look at it as a trivia show. It's an improvisational game show experience. We're just having some fun. You're supposed to have fun when you go out, That's what it is.
So what would you do if a network came calling and said, all right, Steve, we want the show, but we want somebody else to host it? Would that be a game changer, or would you?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I mean, we had some talks where like somebody was saying we could franchise this out and have other people host it. And like, the thing is, then it just becomes a trivia show,
Right.
And once again, I'm walking the fine line of ego and self-belief. I fully believe in what I do. At the same time, I don't want to become an egotistical D-bag, So, but you have to be. If you know something's going to work, the show is me and I'm the show. I bring my personality to it. I think that's what sells it. And it's my idea. So if someone said, much like in the early days with the Tonight Show with Jay Leno, they didn't want him to host it, and he convinced them that he could host it.
Right.
He did. And he's brilliant. The man is brilliant, and now he's still working even after the Tonight Show with You Bet Your Life. So it's like, no, the show is mine, and that is a moot point where Steve Strangio is hosting Super Mega Trivia Slam, and that's it. And if they don't want to do it, but see, that's the problem also, is that sometimes you try to like fit into that square peg. So I see a lot of YouTube shows, much like with Kill Tony, where it's like, could you do that show on a network? Maybe, but like it's really super popular on YouTube. You know why? Total and complete freedom.
Right. And the structure of like a Kill Tony, that kind of structure of that type of show, I don't think would fly on any other way. It's either live or he found a niche, whether it's either live or on YouTube. I don't think it will work. Like I can't see people wanting for Kill Tony to watch it any other way.
And I think that Hollywood Babylon with Kevin Smith, they tried to do a few pilots for the show, I think on AMC, and it didn't really work out too well because it wasn't them being who they are, these amazing, like Ralph Garman and Kevin Smith being who they are. And that's another show that I was drawn to because it was structured improvisation. And, Ralph came from radio, is also performance, he's also a stage actor and an actor, film actor. And he understood structure, and Kevin is Kevin. Kevin understands structure too, but he's just, being this awesome person that he is, and they're a great thing. And their chemistry works when they have it on YouTube or Facebook or wherever else they film it. So I think a lot of networks are finding out, and that's why this whole thing is happening with the strike, is like, streaming affords someone the possibility to be themselves and just to prove to them, no, listen, this is the show, and this is how we do it. I'm more than willing to talk. It's like a network came to me and said, we got to make a few changes. Yeah, I'm open for a collaboration. If you stay too rigid, you're never going to get anywhere. And this is a collaborative. The trick is to find the people who can collaborate on what you want or show you something you didn't see in what you've done. But if they start changing it, into something that it's not, then it's not Super Mega Trivia Slam.
Exactly. I go through the same type of thought process. Like, I try to come up with different types of shows and different ideas and like television shows. Yeah. And then and you want to pitch them out there, and then you start to wonder, okay, if somebody wants to buy it, depending on, let's just say the price tag is $500,000, and Netflix is interested, but they want to recast it or they want to change it all around. At what point, me as a creative, do I feel like I'm selling my soul, or at what point as a businessman do I feel like, hey man, it's 500, just $500,000, let's just take it, and I'm already a creative, I come up with 100 other ideas. At what point do you say, all right, I'll just give this one away for 500?
I think John Malkovich once said, you don't sell your soul, you rent your soul.
Right. That's great.
And there are things much like, so since I'm a person who invents games, you have to understand that there are certain pawns that need to be sacrificed. Okay. Right. To get you to something else. So if someone said to me, we love this we love this thing that you have, we want to make certain changes. If I agree to those changes, I'm not really selling my soul. I'm just saying, okay, you're going to give me $20 million for this. But if they like completely changed it, I would say no.
Right.
that's actually hurt me in various relationships in the past. The woman I was dating was like, "Why didn't you sell that?" I'm like, "Because it's not. It shouldn't be sold. It shouldn't be done like that." Okay, and I have to live with that for the rest of my life. But if I agree with the changes, sure.
But are you willing to let one go? Like, because you're a guy with a million ideas. Like you just told me in this conversation, maybe about 10 different things, right? That are all great.
That's a slogan.
Yeah. So would you, let's just say you had 10.
Yeah.
And somebody said, I want one of them, but I'm going to change the title of it. I'm going to change this. I'm going to change that. Would you still sacrifice that one for the money? Or are you that like going to hold that much?
Let me drop another quote I heard. I think it was from Steven Spielberg. Sometimes you sell cars, sometimes you make art. You know,
hey, that one gave me the goosebumps, man.
There you go. So it's like, okay, if they wanted to make massive changes, and I saw it, you know, like I always said, it's the sculpting process. You know, the sport taught me how to play it. Maybe they saw something that's different. You know, I'd be like, sure, convince me. You got to convince me, though. Convince me that it's better than what I did. If someone comes along and just changes it for the sake of changing it to appease certain current mores, then I don't think that's artistically viable. I just think that it's that's selling your soul. That's just pandering. Okay. But if there's a reason for it, and I go, oh, I never thought of that. That's happened to me sometimes. And like I produced Happy Saturdays like 6 or 7 times already. That's the play about. I worked in Fridays, and I created like one crazy wild Saturday night shift, you know. And that was Happy Saturdays. And I saw different casting suggestions for it. And I go, oh, I never realized that. Okay, yeah, go for it.
Right.
You know? I was like, no, it must be like this. I'm like, no, that can't be like that.
Yeah. No, that's like
one thing is I'll plant my flag on. Other things I'll be like, okay, let's give it a shot.
Yeah, because that's what I kind of face with some of my creations. I'm not an inventor by any means. I can never invent a sport. I give you a ton of accolade for that. But like I come up with show ideas and this and that. And I often wonder if, when hopefully placed in that'd be a good problem to have, is if someone is interested in buying it and the changes they might make. I often wonder, would I be a car salesman or an artist? I love that, what you said. And, you wonder which direction would make the most sense ultimately. And I lean now currently as the artist, where I wouldn't want to kind of sell out, so to speak. But then, I don't know. It's such a slippery slope.
I think when you're younger, you have more of a fervent belief that you are stayed and will never change. As you get older and bills do pile up, okay, sure, there's a romanticized version of the person who never gave in, his principles, which is good. It's good to have principles, but there are times those principles become a wall that you've built around yourself, and you're not opening yourself up. The whole thing about art is to open yourself up to the art, So I think we need a different term, for selling your soul. It's more like, I'm not selling out, I'm buying in, or I'm trying to figure out which is best, about the path I want to go. Because also at the same time, I have to survive, I mean, there was a lot of, actors who said they would never do commercials, yet they would do a commercial in Japan for $1 million.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
And there was a time also when, like, even in the music industry, where it's like, I would never lend my song to a commercial. And what are we hearing now? I mean, there are songs I hear in Trader Joe's that I heard when I was in high school, so there's nuances to it. I'm not saying don't compromise yourself. There are certain things that you can plant your flag on and die on that hill if you want to, but that's why you need to continually create and constantly create, because maybe, just maybe, there'll be a few things that you can put out there that people can either change or give you money for that will feed into the other projects that you do. And there are people who do that. There's people who will do a superhero movie, but then also do Shakespeare.
Right. Yeah. Great point. And like I said, I think it's definitely inspiring to see all the stuff and all the irons in the fire that you have going on, and to see the success of the game show happening, to see the success of Zone Ball that you've already had. Now you're going to build upon in post-COVID. So I wish you all the best with that. And Well, you rock, man. Steve Strangio, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me and do this DONversation. And thank you to Bobby for helping
Bobby
us
was
helping us get everything all set up. So tell everybody where they could find you, follow you, and when they could maybe catch the next Super Mega Trivia Slam.
Yeah, so every social media is it's a Super Mega Trivia Slam at Super Mega Trivia Slam on everything, pretty much TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, the whole deal. YouTube as well. Zoneball Sport. You can go to zoneballsport.com, but also all social media for that as well. And Steve Strangio Productions.com. to check out my website and stuff like that. And Super Mega Trivia Slam is going to continue. It's going to be out there. I'm going to do more episodes here at Paradise Studios, also at Drake Media Studios as well.
Yes.
It's also playing on the Drake Media Network right now, as well as Strong Island TV. So you can catch episodes there as well on Roku and every other damn platform that's been invented since we last spoke.
Well, thank you again. Everybody, please check him out. The great Steve Strangio. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.